terrifying. So I'm here to talk about what the web means for us, what it looks like today, what needs to be fixed, and how we're going to fix it. And we have 10 minutes. It's always great to hear internet pioneers talk about the web they initially built and how it works. I can't do that. I'm not an internet pioneer, and I'll own that. Basically, I'm part of this generation that people call the digital natives. It's really odd because two things are assumed about the digital natives. The first thing is that people say it's a generation of people who grew up with the web, and therefore, they must know the web. So it makes sense. Second thing that people assume is that the web for them is some sort of very stable environment. They grew up with it, it has always been there for them, and they can count and rely on the fact that it will always be there for them. For like younger people today, it's even more so. The web now relates to their first girlfriend, and I know people who never done homework without the web. So that's true. I'm part of the first generation to truly live in the web. When I think of the amount of personal information that is in the web about me and all that I have to make transmitted there and all the things that I use it for, it seems very true. The rest of the two assumptions, though, is bullshit. The whole digital native must know how it works is bullshit. And we know this because the web comes more and more pre-packaged, and people see less and less incentives to look inside the box. That's not good. That's one of the many reasons I really admire the resilience community's constant efforts to open the box and to show how the web works, to enable people to keep on building the web. The web has and will always be there for you type of thing is also good shit, and it doesn't make sense. Because the web changes too much, it has evolved too much. Today's web has very little in common with the web that Tim Berners-Lee's made in the 90s. It also has very little in common with the web even 5 years ago. It's what Anna Lash was saying this morning when he talked about the idea of the web we lost. I want to share a little text with you. It dates back from 1996. John Perry Bala wrote it. He's a lyricist for the Grateful Dead, as you Google, and some people who listen to the Grateful Dead. He's also the co-founder of EFF. And in 1996, he wrote the Declaration of Independence of Cyberspace. That says, it's some sort of poetry versus the about the users versus the industry and the state giants. And it says, government of the industrial world, you weary giants of flesh and steel, I come from cyberspace. It is the new home of mine, and on behalf of the future, I ask you of the past to leave us alone. You are not welcome among us. You have no sovereignty where we gather. And then he adds, you have no moral right to rule, nor do you possess any methods of enforcement that we have true reason to fear. So that is not exactly what we see in the web today. Today, the web kind of feels like a power struggle, and we could very much see how this power struggle applies to both the state and the industry. We sort of understand why. Because on the web as it is today, there is more to protect, more to steal, more to sell, there's more at stake. Sometimes, we wish that we could get a glimpse of the future to understand how that power struggle is going to play out. A couple of months ago, in June, we got better than a glimpse into the future. We got a glimpse into the present. When Edward Snowden leaked the NSA documents, we understood what it was like today. So what did we see? The first thing is that we saw a web in which the power was very, very, very concentrated and centralized. We see that people are handing more and more of their online lives to less and less actors. An example is a challenge that says, can you make a sentence with 3 actors in it that would make a global crisis? I can come up with the NSA is getting a lot of data from Gmail and Facebook. Bam, global crisis. That's the problem. So the other thing we saw is that the law that is supposed to prevent all of this from turning to said is formulated in very broad terms and it's secretly interpreted. We don't see the malicious intent behind this, but that's truly no good reason not to worry about it. Our plan cannot be that we will technically, politically, and legally allow the creation of a massive, stored, searchable, durable database on everything people have ever said on the web, and then hope that it's not going to be used against our freedom. That's not a plan. So as of right now, we don't see the scary political project behind it. What we see is a lot of confusion. Confusion is when we set in to have a dialogue. Two examples of this confusion. The first one is that when people started discussing the general legal framework, the US senators who voted these laws stood up and said, "I never voted for such a system." Yeah, you did. They're unable to consider the entire puzzle. They need a few sources on democracy. There's a problem here. Another good example of confusion is what happened with Tor. Tor is a software that people use to be anonymous on the internet. On the one hand, 60% of its funding comes from the US government via the State Department. And on the other hand, the NSA spends a lot of effort and funding into breaking it. They circulate a presentation called Tor Stinks, official name of the document. It's on the Guardian website now. And then they really try to break it. And then they complain about Mozilla effortlessly fixing it in software updates. It's true. So this confusion and problematic glimpse at the present, where does that put us? At a crossroads. We've got a glimpse of the present, and it is now our duty to say that does not look like the future we want. That does not look like a net respectful of the principles we hold as sacred. Often, people say that democracy is like plumbing. Why? Because you only care about plumbing when there are really bad smells. Democracy in our information society doesn't sound so good right now. And we need some plumbing. Mozillians, we are the great and heroic plumbers of the information society. Plumbers you can also say the architect, painters, evangelists, priests, whatever. What I mean is that this community is in good shape to address these problems. It's well equipped with our knowledge, our motivations, and our values. We talk about privacy, but truly, it's about freedom in general. It's about democracy. What is that thing that we call privacy? Privacy is a fundamental right. We know this because it's in many constitutions, it's in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it's in the European Convention of Human Rights, but truly, in our information society, privacy is the thing that enables a lot of fundamental freedoms. In the information society, there is no freedom of press, no freedom of expression, no freedom of assembly, no freedom to protest without privacy. It's tough to think about privacy because it seems very abstract. And I even know this definition of privacy. I'm going to share it with you because I think it makes it relate to what is at stake. It has three components. It says privacy is really three different things: secrecy, anonymity, and autonomy. Secrecy is the ability for two people to communicate without others being part of their communication. Secrecy is what it's what we are being creeped out about when we say, "Stop watching this." That's secrecy problem. Anonymity is the ability to communicate without the source or the recipient being known. Anonymity is what the journalists and the activists say they need to do their work, to bring their contribution to society. The last part is autonomy. Autonomy is the ability to control who knows what about you and who holds data about you. This morning, we had a bunch of discussions about privacy, and someone said to me, I'm very alarmed when I think that someone has all this data about me, and maybe someone knows more about me than even myself. And I don't know how this data is going to be used. I don't know if I am going to be manipulated, and that freaks me out. That's autonomy. It has consequences on our free choices. It has consequences on our democracy. This is why ultimately we talk about privacy, but truly it's about freedom. It's about our democracy.